Hello and welcome back to Tea and Crones. We are here once again with the lovely Miss Katrina Rasbold and Corbie Mitleid. I am the voice of the people, Dahlia Rose, and I will let these two beautiful ladies introduce themselves. Katrina?
I'm Katrina Rasbold. I don't know if Corbie is aware of this, but the name on the streets for tea and crones, did you know, is seasoned scones?
That had to be
Gladys.
Yeah,
It's Gladys.
yeah, I
It's
knew.
Gladys.
I knew.
Yeah. So I'm Katrina Rasbold. I'm the co-owner of Crossroads Metaphysical Store. I've been a practicing witch for around 38 or so years now. I'm a tarot reader. I do spell work for people. My PhD is in religion, and so I'm very fascinated by the different ways that human beings connect to the divine, or what they consider to be the divine. I'm the author of around 38 books, and the new one, Uncrossing, comes out in August. So my primary job is working in the shop doing cleansings for people, spiritual cleansings that remove attachments, entities, curses, things like that. I also do spell work for folks and do readings. That's me. That's what I do.
Awesome. Thank you. And the lovely Miss Corbie.
Okay. Hi, folks. Been reading since I was 18. I'm 66 next month. Certified tarot master, past life retrieval specialist, spirit guides, angels, and yes, I'm a medium, but I am not Dahlia dead. This is my full-time job. I was one of the 4 mediums in Robert Schwartz's series, Your Soul's Planning, Your Soul's Gifts. I pride myself on being a very practical intuitive. It's here are your opportunities, how to grab them. Here's the tough stuff. Here's how to get through it or around it. Here's your toolbox, go rock and roll. I've only got 3 books out, but that's all right. They're there. One of them is Self-Help, Clean Out Your Life Closet. The other 2 are on the metaphysical journey, the Psychic Yellow Brick Road, and You've Got the Magic, Who Needs a Genie?
Wonderful.
I sold one of your books today, by the way. Also, I'd like to point out that both Corbie and I do shop at Crones Are Us. That's why we dress so similarly.
Yes, we do. Well, last week we had the same colors.
We were dialed in last week too.
Yeah. Same airline.
You can someday shop there, but you have to have your special card to get in.
Yeah, I was just about to say, well, we'll have to plug that, but we have not earned it. So, so folks, tonight we are back with another interesting topic. It is going to be discernment versus judgment. This topic is really dynamic, and the original intention behind getting together with Corbie and Katrina every Sunday night at this particular time was based around the concept of the ways in which people used to gather knowledge, sitting in circles, sharing with one another, and building in connection and community in ways that created wisdom, things being handed down, passed down, and really helping the community thrive. And with tonight's topic, discernment versus judgment, we really want to hear from you. We want to hear about your stories. We want to hear about your experiences. We'll be sharing them back and forth. Like I said, I am the voice of the people, so you will be heard. And we want you to interact as much as you like before and after the segment. So with that in mind, go ahead and drop your comments in the chat box, and we will get started with the topic at hand. So where do we begin, guys?
With Katrina, she's got her note in her list, man.
You said you were going to research, and that was intimidating to me, and that's the only reason I have a
because
list.
I didn't know shit from Chinola, darling.
I was just going to go freeballing here and just talk about it, and all of a sudden she drops research into the conversation. I was like, oh,
that means I don't know this. I'm going to go look.
Now, I want to highlight here for everybody watching, we are dealing with 2 people with heavy Virgo placements. So the word research, the word gather information, the words make lists, these are how they operate and flow.
Don't we all have Virgo placements?
We all have them. I have my list right next to me.
That's
Like-
my
But I just
girl.
want to throw that out there.
Okay. All right.
Very
So
good.
Katrina, take it away.
I'm going to, and first I'd like to go with one thing. I have had this rush of questions that's come up in the last month that's very important. I'd like to address before we get into our topic at hand. And I think that this should be a part of our lineup all the time. Everybody wants to know, who is this amazing Dahlia Rose person? What does she do? Where can I find her store? She is the real star of the show. And these are people who actually like me who say this. So my people want to know about you. So can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, gorgeous?
Okay, well, that is something I forget to do. My apologies. I try to remain in the background. So I am Dahlia Rose. I do healing work in Woodbridge, Virginia, on the East Coast of the United States. My primary practice is healing work, but I do offer intuitive readings. Spiritual counseling is a favorite of everybody's. As I open up safe space for people to just sort of spill their guts, and then we clean it up. With their guidance, of course, because I can only highlight what's going on for a person. I can't change it. So my favorite pastime is conversation, but healing work is where my heart is. So, and you can find me at Crystal Cognizance. We have all manner of social media. Apologies for any missed updates in those spaces, but crystalcognizance.com is where you will find me.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, we are so blessed to have you with us. I know Corbie just thinks as highly of you as I do. And so I wish I could just pluck you out of your shop and put you into mine.
Listen, it's
That
taken
would
me
be
everything
wonderful.
not to move.
So one of the things that is why this is significant to Croning, and I wanted to address a question that one of the people on social media asked, which was, did either one of us have a Croning party? And what did that look like? I had a party when I was 50, and it was not what I would call a Croning party, because when I think of a Croning party, I think of being surrounded by other crones and them welcome me into the fold sort of thing. This was my circle who I adore and who are really good to me. And it was more that they put me on a throne and gave me presents, which there's nothing bad with that. That's fantastic. I did not have a rite of passage that signified Croning. And I'm sure that that's a conversation that we will have later on Teas and Crones. But I just didn't want that question to get away from us. And I did not. I wish I had. I would like to at some time. Corbie, did you do that at all?
No, I had what I call a croning in the trenches. When all of a sudden you are a ripe and viable woman and they take your breasts and they take your ovaries and they kick you into menopause, boom, you kind of, I guess I'm an elder now, baby. And so it was, how fast could I learn? Would have been nice to have presents, but you know.
Yeah. So as we age, one of the things that happens, and this is documented through gerontology studies, and I've seen it very much at work in my life, is that as younger people, and I would put that in 30s and even into 40s, especially throughout high school and 20s, we're very into the number of friends that we have. We want to be outreaching to many people and have good feelings with a lot of different people, so that if somebody is busy on Friday night, we've got 9 or 10 other people that we can get in touch with to go have fun with. But as we age, that begins to draw inward more and more and more. So we become in the flow of things, we go into the mother aspect, whether we have children or not, where certain things that we are nurturing take up a lot of our time. And if other people that have been friends with us are not in that world, then they kind of distance a little bit. We don't see quite as much of them, whether it's children or career or hobbies or whatever it might be that we are focused on growing at that time. We tend to get inclusive with people that are doing what we're doing. But as we age out, we do what's called constructing our caravan. And those are the people that we know we can depend on if we need assistance in some way. And it sounds like a mercenary thing that we judge people based on that, but it really comes down to the people who are tried and true and have been there for us. They're our tribe. They're not just people we're hanging with. They're not people who are necessarily disposable, like friends sometimes are. Now, I was a military wife for 23 years. And so in that case, you learn to let go of people because they're going to go to another base. They're not going to be permanent friends. You just love them for the time they're there and then hope that you find them on social media later. But as we age, we get not clingier, but the cord between us and our people becomes woodier. It's stronger, but there are fewer of those people. And I think that that really heralds our discussion of discernment versus judgment as far as the people that we have in our lives that contribute to the positive energy flow. And I know that all three of us have work that is predicated on a positive, healthy energy flow in us and in our environment. Otherwise, we can't do what we do. And I know for myself, and I think I can speak for both of you as well, that when something comes in that's troubling or disruptive, my ability to heal and manage people, it doesn't compartmentalize. And even though you want to believe that you're professional enough that you can just continue on and soldier through, it does become compromised because we are healing from our whole entire self. And I had an apprentice once that was extremely upset because I put her on hiatus. She was having some suicidal tendencies and talking about self-harming. And she was at a horrible time in her life. And I was saying, I cannot have you working on clients when you're struggling like this. And she took it as a punishment. And the idea that she personalized that rather than seeing that for the betterment of the client, she can't get all of their energy is also a part of that judgment versus discernment thing. So I'm rambling and I apologize for that. But I think what I wanted to say is that we become more invested in what's affecting us. And that speaks to discernment and our application of that in our work.
Absolutely.
Stop talking now for a minute.
What I think of when we're young puppies, we don't know what we have yet. So we collect lots of things around us, whether they're friends, whether they're decisions, whether they're what do we look like, how are we dressing, what are people thinking?
Crystals.
Tarot decks.
The older we get, the more experience we have. And so we don't need as many tools and trappings to figure out who we are. It doesn't mean that we judge the tools and trappings as bad. I don't judge my heavy winter coat bad in July. It's just in the closet till I need it. For me also, because as elders, we've been there, done that, we have compassion for things that we would never have compassion in our 20s, because we know you get past it. We know that it will affect you and turn you in directions you need to go. We don't need to know that the direction is right or wrong. It's just how we learn on the earth plane. So we don't need judgment as a crutch, as a mirror, the way you do when you're younger and your self-confidence and self-understanding isn't there yet. It doesn't, and discernment doesn't mean that we elders think our auras don't stink. Please don't go there.
I think you really hit on something with the confidence.
Mhm.
And we use other people to build ourselves up when we're younger and we want validation for what we're doing.
Mhm.
And as we become more confident and more secure in spirit, we stop needing that as much. And we kind of, what you're describing, I think we kind of Marie Kondo our lives so that we're saying, this doesn't bring me joy. I don't really need to be involved with these people or doing this. It's not bringing me anything positive. I'm just trying to save them, or I'm just trying to be a positive influence to them when it's just draining me. And so we start to really gear down where our energy goes.
Absolutely. And we've got some audience comments here.
Yes, bring it on, baby.
Rin is here with us saying that fewer bonds can be maintained better. Really speaking to the energy that Katrina was mentioning, you know, that the strength of the energy placed into those connections. And then Mel was saying quality connections, not quantity connections. And I think what you guys have highlighted here is the obvious of social media, right? You're measured by likes and by interactions and all of these things. And, you know, there's no space to build that. That's what builds the confidence. That's what Katrina was saying. And with that in mind, I think there was a time when we were in community and that confidence was built through, you know, this is what you're good at, this is how you support the group. And because we're sort of left out on our own, it comes across to me like a danger, like you're in this hyper state of, I need to judge everything to make sure that I don't misstep, that I don't get hurt, instead of being discernment to say, like, this is good for me, even though it's not good for the other person. I mean, look at how much we rely on, you know, Facebook recommendations. And instead of, you know, some people will listen to those over their doctor. So, or their, you know, their vet. So, and then Puma is here. Welcome. Puma says positive flow. I think that's a factor for anyone who has a strong spiritual path when they age. I am finding as an elder that cutting negative flow becomes even more important for my own stability. It's not that I don't care or can't share what I know or can offer, but I have to be more selective in who I am and how I do so. I think that's very well said.
I think that's really where the fine line comes between judgment and discernment. And we rightly so give judgment a negative context in our English language and in the way that it feels, versus discernment. Judgment is about other people. It's about inflicting an opinion about other people in a negative way, attempting to change or elicit a reaction in them. Whereas discernment is about self-love. It's about you and saying, this isn't healthy for me. This isn't what I need. Just like the winter coat that Corbie talked about. This isn't useful to me right now. If she were to just go in and sweat down that coat every day and worry that the coat is upset being pushed to the back of the closet, that's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And so I think,
energy.
Yeah, we have to cut ourselves away from extraneous energy loss so that we can channel the energy that we have to all of the places that do the best good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Rin is commenting that social media is require quantity at the expense of quality. And Puma was mentioning that we can't pour from empty cups, which is that loss that you have without discernment, right? When you're in a judgment space, judgments are shortcuts, and really don't bring to fruition anything good. So
one of the exercises that I tell people to do when their hamsters upstairs are going nuts is it's called the deity exercise. You imagine that you are a 50-foot tall deity and you are standing on a cliff about a mile above a little village. And you see the births and the deaths and the alliances and the squabbles and the marriages and the divorces. But because you are above it, not above it, but you are literally standing above it, you see the patterns. And the patterns themselves can be educational and objective, but you're not siding with Melissa or George. So when you want to ask yourself, am I being discerning rather than judging? Use that image. Can you step out of what's going on and look at the patterns in an objective way? You can decide, I do not care to be part of that pattern, but you're not down there arguing who gets to keep the dog. Big difference. That makes sense?
Yes.
A lot of, especially religious mindsets, tend to force us into determining good versus bad. And a lot of times that has to do with some kind of afterlife reward that's anticipated. And when we are forced to judge something as good or bad in that black and white context, immediately we are not coming from a place of love and compassion. And we're coming from a place of authority to say that we know because of what I've read or what I've been told or what my conditioning says, we know what's good and we know what's bad. When we are not walking the path of the other person, everybody's on their own journey. Everybody is having their own experience. What we can do is to discern what is healthy and supportive of our journey and release the rest of it with love. It sounds corny to say, but that place of love is the vibration where so much magic is able to happen.
Absolutely.
And it releases us from the entanglements of anger and resentment, which really cloud so much thought.
When mankind was new and you picked up a magic rock to go hunt mastodons, it was useful to have an idea that there was something up there that would say, this is good, this is not good. And I will not go into the old Mel Brooks 2,000-year-old man and Phil. It's one of the things about really organized religion. People relax within them because they don't have to necessarily think. They're just told what to do. This is not to disorganized religion. But what I will say is when you step out, when you again see patterns, whether it is Islam, Hindu, Jain, Jewish, Christian, you'll see how there are so many of the same things. Everybody's got the golden rule. Everybody has certain tenets that you begin again to see the patterns, and you don't worry if you see the pattern, whether you're having a milkshake with chicken, because, well, that's bad because it's kosher, or you're having bacon with your eggs, well, that's bad for Hindus. What you're doing is you're saying, I understand the goodness, I understand the compassion. I'm feeding myself nourishment. Notice we're not saying chicken milkshake or bacon is bad. We're just saying this is what nourishes me. And they may make all the other rules for themselves that they want, and I will acknowledge that. The old saying, if you don't tell me I'm wrong, I'll tell you that you could be right too.
This brings to mind how parents will sometimes dive into immediate judgment of who their children are dating, as opposed to discerning, like, is this person going to teach my child something that I can't? You know, and the importance of, as you all put it, what's discerning what's good for you. The child isn't going to learn that without having the negative interaction. Although as a parent myself, and I'm sure you both, like, have seen where it's hard to watch somebody on a collision course or, you know, drowning, so to speak. And so as you started to talk about the discerning what's good for you as an individual versus others, it brought that to mind. I have a lot of parents come in and ask me, like, well, how do we break this up? Like, how do we get this to end? And it's like, well, you know, consider their lessons. So.
Well, and that's part of the crone mentality too, that, I mean, if you were to take every mistake a person could make and put it on a list, Corbie and I could probably divide up that list very successfully. We have really I've got to say, she and I have lived very full, exciting lives. And we've done some really stupid shit and come out the other side and basically been okay and learned from it. But at the same time, that doesn't mean it was a smart thing to do. It doesn't mean that it taught us lessons that were important at the time. And so if you can picture me and Corbie sitting on a great big wraparound porch in rocking chairs, watching the world go by and going, hey, there's a great big pothole right there. You're about to go into it. Yeah, you might want to slow down. You're about to fall into the hole. And they just keep going. We're like, all right, go ahead. That's where discernment comes in, is knowing where to put your energy versus, oh gosh, I've got to run out there and I've got to stop them and I've got to save them. Oh, go ahead. We try to tell you.
We will applaud you if you avoid the pothole.
We'll hold up numbers that say 5.0 and 5.2.
But, some of you just need, as I say, double major plus lab in your life experience. And who are we to take that away from you?
Yeah.
When you come to us and say what happened, we may share experiences. But you are the one that has to decide, that was fun, I'll do it again, or I think I'll pass that one next time.
And when we talk to our clients and we say, well, you could do that. And if you do, it's very likely that this, and this is what's going to happen. And then they come back in 5 months and say, oh, I did the thing and this, and this happened. Yeah, no kidding.
Do you do yes or no questions very often, Katrina? I will not. I'll show them all their options, but I will not yes or no them.
I do. I'll do a tarot reading. Like, I have 4 or 5 different clients that will send me a list of 6, 10 yes or no questions, and that's their reading. And so what I will do in that case for private readings is I'll put down 2 or 3 cards for each of the questions, and I shuffle between each question just to see the energy that's around that question that they're asking. Mm-hmm. And I'll discuss with them, this is the energy around it. I'll do a pendulum to get a yes or no and say, right now, today, this is the answer we're getting. If we're live on Witches at the Crossroads Hour, I just nudge Gladys because she's the pendulum queen. Yes, I'm just like, this is you, babe. Do the pendulum thing. So I do, but I don't appreciate them because the tarot is way too nuanced to be bothered with yes or no questions.
Yeah. And frankly, we don't want to live your life. That's why when someone comes to me and says, does Bruce love me? I will show you what the relationship looks like. And then if you say, I don't know what to do, 3 sets of 3, status quo, come to Jesus, meaning you're gone. And I may see the old Beetlejuice sign going, leave, but I zip it, because if she says, well, I guess we'll just stick with it for now, that's her path. And I can't say tickety boo.
Right.
Now here also,
we have, another thing very quickly is that the tarot is so literal that if she's asking, does Bruce love me? Maybe Bruce loves her. That doesn't mean he wants to be with her. That doesn't mean she didn't break his heart by cheating on her. Mm-hmm. It means Bruce loves her. And so we get a message that says, yeah, Bruce loves you. And so they take that to mean all of those other things. I really learned this lesson hard in doing readings for people who are really mortally ill. So somebody will say, can you do a reading and see how things are going to be in a week? And you do the reading and you get the person's going to be absolutely fine in a week, and then they die. They're fine.
Yep. Difference between a healing and a cure.
Right. And so, really with the tarot, it's just so much about the very literal interpretation of the question that they're asking.
Now, Puma commented, parents can guide discernment. It's often better than enforced control once a child gets large enough to reason, which is a lot sooner than many people think. And very true. I have a 3-year-old that reasons just fine, whether he should lie or not. And then Rin was talking about, this is a funny comment, judgment feels like it's a flavor of, I wouldn't have made that choice, so it's wrong, with an aftertaste of bitterness because we can't control the other person. Wow. I mean, that's a book
Yeah.
title.
That's very true. You know, I have 6 children who are not children. They're now between the ages of 21 and 43. And so I did get to see a lot about what does and doesn't work in terms of guiding kids and giving them, hopefully your goal is to know what's going to be best for them because you know them, and because a lot of their behaviors will mimic some of the things that you have experienced because of the DNA pre-programming, but you want to lead them to believe they came to a decision of their own accord.
Absolutely.
My children probably didn't live a single day that they weren't magic to high heaven. I jacked with those kids all the time. I used poppets, honey pots, candles, food, everything. They didn't
Oh,
make a decision of their own till they left my house, and then questionable.
Boy, look at all of that I missed not having kids.
yeah, but you certainly have, I think you've had a hand in raising others people's kids as you do your
Yes, I'm
teenage
that aunt
mentorship.
that you fear. I
Yeah.
come in, I visit for 2 weeks, fill their head full of nonsense, and leave.
Oh, we do what we have to.
That's right. So I think the main thing is that judgment is something that's just, it's ugly. And it's put upon us a lot of times by society, forcing us to make decisions about other people and what they're doing. And it's like that old internet meme, you know, what somebody thinks of me is not my business.
Mhm.
I need to be involved with my life, not what the person next door is doing, not what my sister-in-law is doing. I need to be focused on my life and what's good for my life and what works for me, not judging what being the Alice Kravitz for, you know, somebody else's life and making snap decisions about them. You know, the more externalized a person is, the less actualizing they're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is
So
a reason.
discernment is about this. Yeah, this works for me.
Yep.
This doesn't work for me. It
Think
doesn't mean it's
about
good or bad.
the kid who looks at you and goes, "You are not the boss of me." The kid has a little schnoot of discernment himself because he's realizing no judgment. So when a kid says, "You are not the boss of me," laugh, applaud it. Perhaps there are little things he needs to do, like not hang off the roof of the house without a ladder. But we also have to remember, in the world is not the boss of us. We are. We choose. And why judge ourselves? There's no need. No goad, no whip. A simple choice. Feels better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where this gets weird, though, on the judgment discernment thing, is when we are, for instance, with a spouse or someone, a supervisor at work, where we're compelled to be with that person and their bad decisions impact us in some way. And I had an experience when I had my product in a metaphysical store, and it was such a bad fit. The people who owned the store were very different people than Eric and I. They interacted with each other in ways that we never would have done, that felt very negative. And so eventually it was our decision to leave. And those people that own the store kind of, I believe, I have nothing to base this on, but I think they thought we would never leave because we made a great deal of money there. And sometimes you have to be discerning enough to say, this environment is toxic to me and what I'm doing. I'm going to have to take the hit and do something different. And when we make those leaps of faith, very often the divine are right there with us to hold us and help us step through. Often we don't respond really as humans to anything except painful experience. And it's sad that it's that way, but we will continue to put our hand on a stove until the stove is hot and burns us. And that makes us move very quickly.
or we lose the hand.
Remove the hand. So discernment also comes with the level of pain, inconvenience, irritation, energy draw that thing is creating. And we'll become the frog in water, where we sit there on the stove and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and we don't realize we're boiling to death because the inconvenience has gotten to us so gradually that we don't realize we're dying. And so that's why that discernment is so important, to be able to monitor our own energies, to meditate and know who we are, what our baseline feelings are, so that when that shifts, we notice.
Yes. Trust it. And if there are problems when you discern you need to move, it's simply a bump in the road. Old Jewish saying, God doesn't do grishes. For those of you who don't know what a grisha is, it's when you stick in the knife and you twist it just a little and make sure it's in there good. That is not God. That is not spirit. Spirit is like the mom who watches the kid take a few steps, fall on his butt, encourages him to get up and do it again. That's what you go for. That is discernment. When you have that feeling inside, this is good for me. This is healing for me. And you're just looking at you. You're not saying it's healing for me because it's bad for them. Then you're beginning to understand discernment for yourself. And boy, does that make a difference.
One thing I'll bet that both of you see in your practices, that I see a lot of, is people blaming spirit for kicking them when they're down or creating bad outcomes for them, when it's based on, if you just do that step back and look at what's going on, it's based on the accountability for their own actions. They set something up to happen the way that it did.
Mm-hmm.
They're aghast when it happens that way. And then they blame God. They get angry at God because nothing ever goes right for me. I never get a break. Well, you just blew your mother's inheritance, on cocaine and Dr. Pepper, or whatever. And now you're pissed that you've got a house payment that came up that you can't make. It's weird how people set themselves up for failure and then will blame spirit when things go wrong.
That has a religious a religious basis, right? Like if I look at something, if I think wrong, God will punish me. So that's the other side of that coin. I remember growing up Catholic and being afraid to sneeze wrong. And anything bad that would happen, oh well, I got a hole in my tire because I didn't go to church on Sunday. And it was really like, no, your treading is bad and you should have taken your car in sooner. I've been more discerning about when to get the car maintenance done.
I think depending on what deity you embrace, they have different approaches to that. If you're a priestess who's worked with Hecate, for instance, or some of the stronger female deities that people tend to work with, they sometimes kind of get off on the misfortune that you create for yourself. So you'll go to them and say, I'd like to do this, this, and this. And they kick back with the popcorn and go, yeah, go ahead. Watch what happens. And then when you do fall down, they say, see, now I want to talk to you about what went on there and how your ego got in the way of that. And so I think that really one of the most important things is really dialing into whatever you consider to be divine and knowing what that feels like and hearing that voice. And we don't hear that voice without meditating, praying, whatever you want to call your connection with the divine.
Absolutely.
But I think Corbie's right. Most divine figures don't get off on punishing you. That's not the way it works. The idea of a divine figure is to move the species forward. The way the species moves forward is by each individual moving forward and becoming a better self. And
if you're looking to be punished by God, then you're way you're right back in the little kid playpen.
And you're
It is-
creepy.
Yeah, you have to remember, an adult asks themselves what needs to change.
You know, I find it interesting, you guys were speaking to it a little earlier about judgment and discernment and the element of pain as an aspect of the learning process, and how judgment tends to be, whether you are judging others and trying to prevent their circumstance, it's you're trying to prevent their pain. I've heard that. But really what's happening is that you are afraid that you won't have the right reaction, you won't have the ability to support them, and you can't discern within yourself what you're capable of, or you know, maybe this is going to take too much energy, and that's speaking to the lack of work done, right? The lack of discernment work done to say like, oh, I have energy for this kinds of things, and I can refer or delegate, or I can, you know, I can't be there for my friend right now, but I have these resources. And how much judgment is that shortcut to like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to want to deal with that later, so make sure you don't do it. Let me herd you like cattle into the right decision.
And that's very true with kids, especially kids that are grown and making their own choices. You know, I'm going to go start a rock band, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this. The parents sitting there thinking, this is going to cost me so much money, or I know I'm going to have to dig you out of jail for this. Don't buy a motorcycle. That's going to be very bad. I can't manage it if you get into an accident. So we do tend to base a lot of our judgments, even toward people we love, on our ability to handle what happens if it goes sideways. We also tend to always think, and Crones fall into this hole quite a bit, that because we had a certain experience in a similar situation, that another person will have the same outcome. And we have to avoid that kind of arrogance that says that it's going to go exactly the same way for this person, that person, this client, because that's how it went for us.
Mm-hmm. You know, and we judge ourselves. If I don't stop them, what kind of a person am I? God, I'm so awful. I have to. No. Zip it. They are choosing to do what they do, and you do not have to be the traffic cop. And you're not a bad person if you let them see what their life path is going to do for them at any given point.
It's not our job to fix people, whether it's a client or family or spouse or friend. It's not our job to externalize and try to fix somebody else. If we can't love them as they stand before us in that moment, the discernment is they need to not be in our lives. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to engage from a place of non-resentment, lack of fear, and mutual appreciation. Now, it's not going to be perfect all the time, but overall, that connection has to be solid and real. Otherwise, it's just a black hole that you're throwing your energy into.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Look at the passive. I want to look at passive aggressive as an idea of, it looks like you're being discerning, but you're really judging. It's like the Southern saying, you know, bless your heart, love your hair, hate your guts. It's authenticity. It doesn't mean that you have a right to just rooter people's emotions, but passive aggressive will not help you. It will hurt in all situations, because people will not learn to discern for themselves. They may not even realize that you are judging them. So all of the energy has gone all to hell. Katrina, where do you stand on this?
Passive aggression is just aggression. It really is. It's a cowardly form of engaging in an aggressive way, mm-hmm. so that you can have plausible deniability when you're confronted with what you said or the energy that you put out there. You can always hide behind something else. And that's really kind of a shitty way to be in the world. If you want to say something, say it. If you're in a position with somebody where you're afraid or you can't be direct, you need to find a way to get that person out of your life. Because, and I hate to be that mercenary, but that's really the truth. Passive aggression is just aggression. And it's a sneaky way of trying to make a point, and it's very immature. So grown-ups have conversations. Even if somebody is irate or unpredictable, you should still be able to state your truth. And if you are not going to get a positive reaction, you need to reevaluate why that person's in your life.
There's a reason that we refer to some people as high maintenance friendships. And do you really want to keep pouring gasoline into a leaky car?
Often what a person is getting from the judgment is the feeling of being superior or the feeling of being needed in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And by judging that, oh, you know, you obviously can't get out of the financial rut that you're in, let me lend you my superior financial expertise. Let's leverage you out of this. Let's help you with this. Let's do this. Let's do that. You know, by doing that, you make yourself really indisposable to the person. And most people who do that sort of martyr extension, and I bring that up because they are often the people who are very passive aggressive or the martyrs, are doing it so that they gain some kind of self-worth by their ability to fix another person or their situation. It doesn't mean you shouldn't help people. It's that you shouldn't fix people. That's very different.
Absolutely. It's like healing 101. You are not fixing anybody.
You are the toolkit. That's it. So
I had a friend once that was a Reiki instructor, and she used to say, you are the tool for the divine. That's why it's called Reiki, because you're the rake.
So.
Yep. So I think the main thing to think about is where those feelings of discernment and judgment and the behaviors that come along with them come from. And again, judgment comes from an externalized place that is triggered by your fears and by your negative feelings. Often it's the fear of the other, someone who is different. You're judging somebody because they're doing something different than you ever imagined that anyone should do, or they think differently, or they dress differently, whatever. You create a judgment that's negative. Discernment is about the energy that impacts you as a growing, evolving person, and whether the energy that you would be judging if you were a lesser person is going to have a positive or a negative impact. And I think that really discernment is the grown-up version of judgment.
Absolutely.
So when you come to us, we can help you discern what you need.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If you end up with an intuitive who judges you, run, do not walk. Because those are the ones that see you as a mark. If you respond to their judgment, then they can judge you out of a lot of money. And they will convince you that they know better than you do. Kids. You see that? You leave. That is not what we are meant to do.
One of the things that I was taught in my training that was a big part of what I was taught, and I needed to be taught this, I needed to learn this, is what they call the platica, which is the first part of a healing session. Some people call it intake, some people call it the interview, but platica just means talk. And so what happens is that a lot of the healing occurs during platica session. And one of the hardest things to teach students, and I know I was a tough one to teach on this, is shut the fuck up. When we're interviewing someone or talking to somebody about what brings you here today, why did you seek out my services? we automatically want to share with them an experience that happened to us that was very similar. And, oh, I relate to you because of this and this, and create some relatability with the client. And we want to say, oh, this happened to my friend. And, so we get all this conversational reel going in our head while the client is explaining their circumstances. And what I hear is Don Francisco, one of my brujos that trained me, saying, shut the fuck up, because this session is not about you. It's about holding space for the client. And if you sit there and don't interrupt, you will learn so much from your client, and your client will often solve all their own problems just by talking about it. And when people come to me, a lot of times they're talking about things they've never told another person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so holding that sacred space of confidentiality and just letting them unburden like a confessional, speaking only to ask leading questions or to take them, and how do you feel about that? Or what do you think caused that to happen? And keep pushing the ball back to them opens up this whole world of empowerment for them so that they can see the amount of control they actually have over the situation. Then you go on and you do the sage and you do the egg and lift them up, and they're a new person by the time they walk out the door, without realizing it was the talking that really healed them rather than me rubbing an egg on them.
They can get advice from their Aunt Sadie, honey. They are coming to you specifically because you do not know them. And you're not going to say, well, of course you're having this problem. Don't you remember when you were a junior in high school? And we are tabula rasa. We're a clean slate that we help you write on so that you can see what you need to do.
Absolutely.
Another place that discernment comes up, and we kind of touched on this in the last couple of episodes, and that is, and I wanted to ask Corbie how she employs this discernment. We do not have the obligation of working with everybody who comes to us. And I have to use discernment to say, that's not a spell work I'm comfortable doing. Here's why. Here is how you can do it yourself. Here is somebody who might be willing to do it, but that's outside of what I'm comfortable doing. And there's been a few people that I've rejected and just said, that's not my specialty, that I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. So how do you present it in a pretty package if you're going to tell somebody that you are not the person to do what they're wanting you to do?
Well, there are a couple of things. Sometimes I'll simply say, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling the connection, because if I feel my shields go up, obviously I'm not. If it's something that I can sort of do, but I know somebody better, what I say is, look, a true professional intuitive knows when they're not your person. And we're lucky if we can get you to someone we think is the right person. Mm-hmm. So if somebody asks me a health question, I tell them, I'm like your family doctor, I'm a GP. You should go to a specialist, and I send him to Stacey Wells. That simple. Or if it's an emotional thing, these days I'm saying, I think that you would do well with Olympia. Here is Katrina's information. Because the only eggs I use are for omelets and cakes. You use them for really neat things. But that's the whole point. Intuitives that hopscotch over the line are so intent on the money that they'll figure out, well, I'll figure out how to do it. Mm-hmm. And just as all boats rise, all boats sink. So if one of us says to you, I'm not feeling the connection, or it's not in my wheelhouse, or I think a better person for you would be X, please trust us. Because we don't want your money if we can't do for you what you're asking, or the service that you're asking. We cannot necessarily make you win the lottery. So
I've watched people do that, and it's really painful to see somebody who isn't good at something try to do it just to get the money. Mm-hmm. And it's heartbreaking, because a lot of the people who do that really are good at something. And if they were to take the time to learn to do what they're trying to do, or just stick to what they are great at, everybody would be better off. And so for myself, for instance, I am not really good at past life readings. I'm not really good at numerology. And so if that comes up, I'm sending these guys straight to Corbie, because that's not my gig. It's not what I do. And we shouldn't be expected to be experts in everything.
It's one of the problems with rookies, kids who are just on the path. They think they have to be good at everything. And I explain to them, no. First 2 years in med school, yeah, you learn a lot of things, but then you decide, do I want to be a pediatric pulmonologist? Do I want to be a cardiologist? Do I want to be a surgeon? And there may be very cogent reasons why you don't do things. The example I always use, Gladys is fabulous with pendulums. I have a slight benign tremor in one hand, very Katharine Hepburn. So I don't trust what I get. So it's not a tool I'll use. But I know someone who does.
And I know a guy is what saves us from a lot of stuff. And that's why, networking is so important.
Absolutely.
Is so you can know people that you trust, that you would go to, that you're comfortable handing off clients to, knowing they're going to get good care. Mm-hmm. And so I don't do recommendations for people that I have not had work on me myself.
Yes, absolutely.
And got good results. And, but I recommend out quite a bit. It's very rare. And now sometimes I'll be in the middle of a healing and I'll get to something that I haven't seen before. And I have to kind of intuitively work my way through it. It's not that I'm bluffing. It's just that I'm digging deeper and saying, Spirit, you got to talk to me about this, because this is weird. Haven't felt this before. Mm-hmm. And that's a little bit different than knowingly going into a situation where you're just way over your head. And it's arrogant. Don't do that.
But you really don't want to say out loud, holy shit, I've never seen this before.
I don't know.
I'll say it out loud.
At the end, I will say, like, well, this was a first, and here's what I got. But I'm wondering, so we are winding down to our last 4 minutes.
Wow.
And would love to hear closing thoughts around discernment versus judgment. Any words of wisdom you guys want to leave with the audience?
Discern well, don't be a judgy bitch.
Discernment will feel kinder here.
Yes.
For you.
Yes.
That is
Check there.
Judgment contaminates you. Discernment protects you.
True. Very true. So we want to thank everybody for joining us. We had a number of comments, number of interactions. They were wonderful. Thank you. Keep it going. This is going to keep replaying. So if you're catching us on the replay, we want to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook at TN Crones on Facebook. You can also go to our website and find us right back here next Sunday at 8. We also have a couple of announcements between these two lovely ladies. They have their own gigs and you can find them. We will have links up in the comments, but just so you're aware, every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Katrina lives in California. She will be doing Wisdom at the Crossroads alongside Witches at the Crossroads. So the acronym is WATCH, and I was so excited when I saw that I wrote the wrong word. So Witches at the Crossroads, sorry about that, every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And she has two lovely ladies joining her, Gladys and Nelta. And then Crossroads also has an event on Saturday, Primal Witchcraft Conjure Curios A through Z. It's going to be Saturday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time as well. I caught their last broadcast on Saturday and it was awesome. And you guys even dipped a little bit into the curios, which I loved. So if you can catch the replay on that, you can check that out on Facebook Live in the replay section. And then all of other events, announcements and things like that you can find on their Facebook page. And please go, check out their website. They have a lot going on. They have guests, they have classes online at your pace, as well as the live ones too. So that is crossroadsoccult.com. Is that correct, Katrina?
Yep, that's it.
Awesome. And then Corbie has some announcements as well. This Sunday is her monthly free reading hour. So if you have ever seen a hummingbird go after a feeder, that's Corbie going after the questions that come. She's like, "Bup, bup, 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 bup." I mean, I don't know anybody that reads as fast as Corbie does. For one question, you get a lot. So if you want to join in, you can find her, like I said, Sunday, February 21st. That's this upcoming Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because we are on the East Coast. Corbie is in New York. And in just under, or rather over a month from now, Corbie has a class coming up, Create Your Sentence of Passion. And that is going to be a great opportunity to dive into self. This is a great opportunity for discernment so that you don't have as many people speaking into your life in ways that deter you from your path. So it's going to be a really beautiful opportunity. You're going to be a part of online community. It is a group class, and that's going to be Saturday, March 20th at 2 p.m. again, Eastern Standard Time. Otherwise, you can message us on the Facebook page with questions, comments, concerns. We love feedback. We want to improve this and make it a safe space, again, to draw together knowledge and then build wisdom through all of that. And so if there are things you want to hear from us, if you want to hear the Crones dispense some wisdom and experience on a particular topic, make sure you reach out. Other than that, we have hit that minute and moment. I want to say thank you to everybody, and let's keep this going. This was wonderful.
Yes.
All right, have a great night.